another book review for you. This is How to Read Novels Like a Professor by Thomas C. Foster. I wanted to get more into books that discuss books more critically. I don't know if this necessarily falls under literary criticism. I just love the discussion of literature and people talking about books and how they relate to other books and culture and everything in the macro sense, and just how it affect the world and field of literature and how it's changed. Yeah, especially on this book, it says a jaunty exploration of the world's favorite literary form. And yeah, I definitely think the novel is my favorite literary form. I definitely like it over poetry. I like it. I haven't never really got too much into short stories. I just really like the novel. I came across this and felt obligated to buy it, just to see someone who has a literature degree and has sort of a literature background, if there was anything I could learn from this. I'm sure that there's something in there that I don't know, and it might be a good, beginning into the field of discussing literature. And it was. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I really liked his tone. I honestly laughed out loud a few times. He has a good way of keeping you engaged and keeping it funny and fun. And Thomas C. Foster, he's a professor of English at the University of Michigan Flint, where he teaches classic contemporary fiction, drama, and poetry, as well as creative writing and composition. In addition to this book, he is also the author of How to Read Literature Like a Professor, which was his first book, and I also have a copy of that. I bought it when I was about halfway through with this one because I came across it, and I definitely plan on getting to it as well. He has also written several books on 20th century British and Irish fiction and poetry. He lives in East Lansing, Michigan. This book covered a lot, but honestly, I don't think it's a good book for beginners. I feel like this is an intermediate book. It felt like it was perfect for me because I don't know that much about literature, even though, my main focus is the 60s and 70s, but other than that, I don't really know too much of the broad sense of the whole field, and so this gave me a nice explanation of when the novel became a form, how it formed, which I kind of knew a little bit about, and then up into kind of present day and modernism and postmodernism and everything, just kind of going over like the broad survey history of the novel as a form, which I really enjoyed. My biggest complaint, honestly, was the spoilers. He spoils so many classics, and it wasn't until the end where he was like, oh yeah, it doesn't bother me that when endings are ruined. And I'm just like, dude, it bothers me. I freaking hate knowing what's gonna happen. Not knowing what's gonna happen in a book is like one of my favorite things about reading, and the surprise of it all. And another one of my complaints is every chapter he brings in like a lot of examples, but he always the same couple ones every now and then. Like every chapter, I swear he talked about the French lieutenant's wife. Almost every chapter he talks about this book. But he also brings in a lot of examples like in each chapter where I felt like he was trying to bring in too many. Like keep it down to like 3 or 4 maybe and stick with those and keep on for each chapter, but then choose a different example for each one so like you get a better broad sense of the word. But like he'll bring in one example and talk about it for a page, and then bring in another example and talk about it for a page. And I just kind of I'm like, oh my gosh, like on a couple of chapters, it was just like, you're throwing so many things at me, like tone it down a bit, keep it a little bit more simplified, even though like it wasn't like too complex for me to understand or anything like that. It was just like throwing so many names at a certain point. But it definitely was a good book to find books to read, and understand why they're important and why I've been seeing them, especially his section on metafiction, which I thought I understood what that word meant, but it's the books that like take a different take on literature, essentially kind of like the Green Knight movie, where it's like you kind of have to know the original to know how it's playing off this one. because it's changing things. Like the book Grendel, where it's like in the monster's perspective of Beowulf, like that's metafiction, and so you kind of have to like know original before you can kind of go into other, and then it talks about that. But anyways, but yeah, I mean overall it was enjoyable. I really didn't like the spoilers. I'm 50% into Great Expectations right now, which I'm loving. I got a couple things spoiled from that, and every time I saw the word Pip, I just ended up like skipping this section because I didn't want it to be ruined for me, because he would just like drop huge spoilers just like out of nowhere with no warning, no nothing. And it wasn't until the end that he said that he like it doesn't bother him about endings being ruined, but that's a huge thing that bothers me. So I wish he would have gave some more, you know, warning with that. I definitely recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone that doesn't know anything about literature, but if you're like getting into it and you know, some of the classics, some of the history, it'll be nice. This is a good intermediate book to like fill in a lot of gaps. But yeah, definitely a good read. I'm gonna read his other book, but I might wait a little bit. Thanks. Peace.